Welcome in, everyone. This is our flow recap for the week of 6/16 to 6/20. Market was closed on 6/19 for Juneteenth. If you're new and joining us, again, all this flow we're going to recap here. This is majority of it's called out in Stock Hub here, so everything's called out in real time. Don't edit my posts or anything, so everything is in here. If anybody has questions, feel free to ask about that. But yeah, for you, per usual, we're just gonna go over the flow that was called out, kind of the movement of the contracts. We're gonna take a peek at kind of the raw flow and what stuck out. So let's get started here. So Intel, we're gonna skip over this. This was one of last week's flow and charts trades. This for anybody that was in here, our entry was kind of back in that 165. We're trading almost break even on those, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. But let's look at APPN, the 7/18/27 puts. So let me come over here. So here is our entry here. We can see we had 11,000 contracts for 580,000 at 51 cents per contract. And again, looking at that raw flow feed, got to come and look at that every time. Let's come back here and look. So what sticks out to me is here's your volume coming in here. You're coming in above the ask, and you can see when that flow came in, that spike in that IV, that would read as a buy to me. So again, there's just specific rules that we look for, especially when you're looking for contracts that are being bought. You're looking for that IV to increase as the flow comes in. You're looking for that spot to be coming in at least at that ask. So this coming in above the ask, that's a good sign there. So again, seeing that IV spike, that size coming in above the ask, that would read as a buy there for me. And when we even come back here and look at, we'll actually do it like this. So if you look at the 16th here, so you can see clean entry here on that candle. And again, always paying attention to that volume to open interest. You can just see that volume, 11,000 contracts versus 54 open contracts at the time. Clean opening trade, just based off volume to open interest, math-wise, that is a very good sign. So that's kind of just the little detail there. So here's your flow on the day it came in. I'm looking at net premium too as well. This isn't always a 100% tell-all, but again, good sign because we had that big spike in net put premium. You can see that put volume is up there as well. And even kind of looking in here a little bit more, that flow here on that day was 95% of the total volume. So very good sign that this whale would probably be correct in their move. Again, not always 100%, but again, using your rules and context clues, that helps a lot. So now backing this out to Friday again. So again, market was closed on the 19th, so this is why we're not seeing that 19th in there. Here's our flow. You can see that move of the contract, and we'll be looking at the full range of the contract as well. So here you are, 51. These kind of just chopping, just break even, maybe slightly green. Just kind of just chopping, and then you can see we had a small little pullback here, and then Friday, these contracts ripped to the upside. Hit closing at 103. They did hit a high of 110 here, so moving from that 0.51 to 110, that's 115.69% here on those. And again, you can see, and something I like to tell people too is pay attention to the days to expiration. If you see something that's 7 days to expiration, how I like to explain the days to expiration, that's the timeline for that whale. Longer days of expiration, that whale is obviously probably expecting a move, but maybe not a quick move. Maybe they're expecting a pullback day in there or something. Like if you're 50 days out, more than likely you're going to have to be a little more patient on those. So these were about 30 days out. You could maybe kind of wait for a little better entry or find a good support spot, or well, it would be resistance here because these were puts. You'd be looking for a resistance spot. So this is where charting kind of comes in. You can always chart that flow out against the flow too. That's what I like to do. So again, that's flow running from that 51 to a high of 110, and we're closing pretty much at the high on Friday. So Again, max return of 115.69%. Whale looks to still be in. Probably have some coming off today. Would have to check that Monday though. So let's move on here next. So we have the Tesla 711 360 call. Some of these I'm not going to spend a lot of time on just because they're down or they're kind of still in process. So these Teslas again coming in on the 16th. So we're working on Monday right now. So here's our flow. We're just going to take a quick peek at it. A little smaller volume on here. It was a little kind of quieter week. Obviously holiday weeks are a little quieter. Let's come here and see if it, okay. So again, a little drop in that IV there. Oops, let's come back here. Sometimes it can get a little funky if you try to go back earlier in the week. So IV does kind of drop a little bit there. Coming in at the ask though, so it's a good sign. Little wider bid ask there. And even looking at Monday, I mean, kind of looking back now, I mean, obviously you had a little more put premium here, little net call or bid side call premium here. Tesla did have the robo-taxi event this weekend, or they had the unveiling of it. So this could be a play on that. Have to see what happens with that Monday, but as of right now, these contracts would be trading at about 676, so that whale's down about 42%, but again, some time on those. And I don't recommend, obviously, and again, do what you want. None of this is financial advice, but I do not recommend going down 40-50% on trades and following these whales. You have to kind of have your own risk management plan and all that as well. So up next we have Hood, the 7376 calls. So let's take a peek here. We're going to pop back to Monday. So here's our entry. Again, looking at that net call premium. Looking good there. Put premiums down. We're going to take a peek at the raw flow. So our flow again, looking at that volume to open interest. We know it's an opening trade. 1,200 contracts, $4 a contract, 502,000 in total premium. Come here and look, and we can see you're kind of looking for that volume in here, and this one's giving you a rule, so it's a repeated hits alert. So again, right away, and a lot of my flow, if you've been with me through a lot of these videos, you can see it's pretty uniform where you can see that flow is matching. So that IV spikes right here. Spot price is filling at the ask. Good sign there. And then when we come out here, I actually want to pop this to a 2-day chart and then show an exit. So again, we're looking at the 16th where they came in. A lot of that volume carrying over here into the 17th. So now we have 2,300 contracts traded on that day. So you see that 1,200. So to me, this is telling me that whale right here opened these at 4 and then they closed them at 375. So we have a lot of volume that day here on the 17th. No change in the open interest. So a lot of contracts changing hands that day. And now let's pop out to Friday. So again, paying attention to that open interest, because volume and open interest, very important when you're following these whales, and open interest will only update once throughout the day, so keep that in mind. That's updated in the morning. So now when we pop this out to Friday, so that whale that passed those contracts, they had the correct read. So 4, they cut those at 375. We had a small little dip in here down to 283, so that explains why they would have dropped them, but they could have probably got a better entry, and because these came up and hit 534 there on the 18th, and even on the 20th we were about that 537. So you can see we hit that high of 563 and 545 there on the 18th and 19th. That whale had the correct read, but obviously they cut for a loss. So running from that 4 to 563, that's a 40.75% gain there. All right, so Apple, the 73210 calls. So another good one here. Let's pop this over to the 16th. So a really good important one to kind of look at here too. Looking at the 16th, you can see 7,500 contracts coming in here. 84 cents a contract, 632,000. So again, you can see we had, so 7,000. Keep this number in your head. We had about 14,000 contracts total on the day, and we only had 4,000 carry over. So a big chunk did not carry over. So to me, you can see we this little run into close here from that 84 all the way up to about 93 there. 93 there. 96 would be our high actually on the day. So seeing a lot of volume kind of come off here towards the end of the day. So 22,000 contracts here. So 2,500 there. So about 4,500 contracts there. So that whale, if they did exit at the top towards close, and we will never know, but a lot of that volume there coming off, and with only about a third of that, quarter of that kind of carrying over, I'm going to say that whale probably took some profits on that little intraday run there. And even popping this out to Friday. So you can see this is our day, the 16th, where it came in. Some of that volume there. Then we even had some come off here. We're interested in about 18% multi-leg now too, so kind of some more action probably going on there. Another big bid side candle here. So now you're starting to get a little too much volume to kind of track that singular whale, know how much they kept in, but kind of coming back a little bit on Friday. Actually hit a high of 86 on Friday, so you could have at least got back out at break even, but those running 0.86 to 0.96, nice little 11.63% scalp. And I always tell people the way that I'm kind of looking at the flow is I like to see at least 10-15% for a good return, and I will be adjusting my stops up. Like if I'm at 10%, I will have my stops at break even. If I'm at 15%, maybe I'll move it up to like 5%, but you have to be kind of diligent when you're following these whales. Always just use caution, adjust up stops, secure profits, all that fun stuff. But those making that 0.86 to that 0.96 return towards the end of the day. And you do see a lot of like 200, 300% returns. Those are nice, but I mean, you're going to see more of that like 15 to 25%, something along those lines where you're going to see a solid return. Those big home run flows are kind of on gap downs or news, so just keep that in mind. So again, the Apple's 86 to 0.96. So now let's look at the 620-591 SPY puts. These expired Friday. So again, coming back to the 16th. Let's pop this down. So we're looking at the 16th here. So now, consider we had 51.24 contracts on the first candle. Second candle was actually our entry at 140. So you can see we're not exactly right at that same size. So let's come look down here at the volume to open interest. So you can see about 10,000 between those two. Majority of that flow carried over. So good sign there. And now when we kind of come back here to check in, we'll actually look at the raw flow again. So come in here, and we'll see if it lets me do it because that contract's expired too. Okay, here we go. So sometimes it might not come in as an alert. So this is kind of where you have to look at the raw flow. Again, watching that IV, you can see we're filling at the ask. These are right at the ask. I saw that one, so it kind of confused me. So coming with the ask, then we have the big ask side fill. Big size, big premium, spike in the IV, reads as a buy. So coming back here, now let's pop this out to Friday, and we'll look at that move. So again, here were our two candles here. You can see these hit their high back on the 17th. So these hit a high of 337 on the 17th. That's 140.71% on those. So good move on those. Next, we're going to look at end phase. So again, we're looking at, these came in on the 17th. So these were the 6/20/32 puts. Again, short-term time frame. This came after the gap down with FSLR and the solar bill, or not the solar bill, the building the house, saying that they're trying to get rid of solar, all that stuff. I'm not going to get deep into that, but here's our candle. So 4,200 contracts. So again, pay attention to this. On the 17th, 11,000 contracts traded, only about half carrying over. Here's your whale entry, 75. They dipped down to about 49, and then they popped again, coming up and hitting 95 for a high. So that's a 26.67% return. So again, 4,200 contracts on that. You had about 11,000 trade on the day. So to me, you're seeing a lot of volume kind of coming off here a little earlier, but I'm going to say that whale probably closed same day on those, just with that, only about half of that carrying over, and you're seeing a lot of size coming off there. But those contracts did make a good move, 75 to 95. That's 26.67%. And again, net put premiums up. We look at that raw flow, and I believe this one was above the ask. Yes, it was. So again, seeing a lot of IV here, and I'm going to pop this down. So again, you can see right when that flow starts to come in, spike in the IV, coming in at the ask, and what should really stick out to everybody, again, seeing it just come in at the ask the whole way up, that IV staying there. Then you see the big size come in here above the ask, and you have a big spike in that IV. That is how the flow reads as a buy. And again, small little drop, and then popped, and then enough time to get out on something like that. So 75 to 95, that's 26.67 on those. So up next, the 718 ARC 59 puts. Come back here and look. So we got these actually at 112, and then we saw some more size come in here. Again, this whale looks like they're still in with a little time. 11% multi-leg, not horrible. But this is our entry here, 112. These came up, hit about 146 for a high there on the 17th. Those made an intraday move. 30.36% move on those intraday. So good move there. GE, this was another one that came in above the ask. We're going to look at that raw flow here quick first. Come in here again. Can see sweeps followed by floor, 34.71. We're sitting in here. IV staying up. See that volume and size come in pretty significantly above the ask, so it would read as a buy, and obviously have a little more here. You can see that. Again, IV jumps and IV jumps again. It reads as a buy. So this one's interesting because you have that move here. You can see about most of that, big chunk of that carrying over. It looks like a lot of that's probably still in. But moving up here, 111. So coming up and hitting 141 there on the day. And then even on the 17th, so we have 151 as a high, and then even 143 as a high that next day. So those ran from 36% after that flow came in pretty much twice. So again, enough time to secure profits. And please keep in mind, all this flow is time sensitive. If you see flow from 3 days ago and it's up 20%, I don't recommend chasing something like that at all, because you can get crushed doing that. But keep in mind, again, everything's time sensitive in this game. But again, flow moving from 111 to 151, that's 36.04%. So up next we have the 7.3 Amazon 2025 put. So again, another interesting one here, 2,000 contracts. Looks like we had some kind of action here for 3,300. I'm going to say that first whale probably did swing these, because, I mean, you had that weird candle here, and then some of that not carrying over. You can see that most of that whale came over, though. It looks like 2021, we're going to say they carried them over. So contract here. Again, IV spikes. IV spikes here again on more size. So you got to look at the flow around it as well. That spot price increases there too. So a little kind of choppy there, same day. Fell that next day. So this is kind of why I say you can always look for discounted entries, because 12 days can always chart something out. Look for a resistance spot on a put. So from the whale entry 136, these hit a high of 211 here on Friday, so 55.15%. Some good move on those. Delta Airlines, this one obviously still some time here. These are sitting about 69% multi-leg right now. Probably wouldn't chase something like that. Here is your flow, 233. Looks like they could have sold some at 240. Not a huge gain, but they're trading about 202 right now, so that whale would be down 13%. But again, big chunk of its multi-leg now. Probably wouldn't follow that, no. So Intel, the 725.26 calls. Here was our entry coming in here, 26. You can see, actually I'm going to pop this here so it's a little cleaner now. So again, 6,300 contracts, $26 a contract, 163 in total premium. Just kind of looking at that raw flow feed here. Again, see right when that flow is coming in here. Repeated hits alert, that IV pops. You're coming in at the ask, good sign there. And our flow again, 26. So now this is why I always tell people to look at percents, because if you're looking at this in dollars, you're moving from 26 cents to high of 34 cents. So you might think, oh hey, that's only $8. Well, you're looking at that as a percent. So those moving from 26 cents per contract to 34 cents per contract, that is 30.77%. That is a big gain, very big gain. So have to check to see how much is there, but it looks like kind of some contracts changing hands. I mean, you have 6,300 here. I mean, most of that carrying over, and then seeing some volume here. I have to see how much of that comes off into Monday. But again, for now, 26 cents to 34, 30.77%. The BACs, 7,345 calls coming in Tuesday, 62 cents. These hitting a high of 92 here on Friday. So 41.54%. Looks like a majority of that volume still in there. So another one here, this next one, looking at MSTR, the 627,385 calls. So this one, we're watching these because you had a couple bars coming in here, so keeping an eye on these. So this is kind of where once you start seeing a lot of hits on a name, it brings attention to me. But like if you have like two ask side candles that are about the same, something like that, I'm holding off. I'd like to see multiple candles then to kind of make sure I can kind of assume they're opening a position. So we got in here actually on that third candle at 440. So these ran essentially right away up to that 531. Actually, they hit 595 there, so that's a 35% move quick there. I mean, you're sitting up there. I mean, 531. I mean, 519. Enough time to at least get a stop on. And you know, MicroStrategy is pretty volatile. 6 days ago, very smart to kind of adjust up and can always re-enter. I always tell people that. And I mean, seeing some more hits here on Friday, I have to see how much of that carries over into Monday, but majority of that carried over into Friday. So good sign there. If you're holding those or would try to enter them on Monday, good luck. But again, 440 up to a quick 595. Again, that's why I always say it's time sensitive. You don't need to be chasing something up here at 531 if the fill was 440. That's not a good thing to do. So up next, the 7.3 Verizon VZ425 calls. Here's our entry. Looking at the flow. So again, let's see, it's going to probably glitch. Yeah, okay, let's go back here quick. So come here. So 1974, you see that IV all the way up. You can see we're coming in right at the ask. Good sign there, just following that up, make sure it's staying up. So we do get a little flow after here, where, again, this is why I say you got to pay attention to the surrounding flow. So to me, this is probably the small drop in IV here. It's on one contract. So this is kind of where time in the game comes. That one contract fill isn't going to throw me off. So can see that IV spikes again here, and that spot price increases on some more size and premium. And again, paying attention to that time, all the same time. We can assume this is the same trader, just, I mean, they're coming in at the same second, but 100% won't ever know. But flow reads good there. 38, that flow coming up to 45 there, hitting 45 about there again too, 46 there, and hitting a high. It looks like might have had a wider spread here on Friday at 62. So from that 39 to 62, that's a 58.97% max return. So good move on those. And then IBM, the 627-285 puts. Here's our flow. And again, this is some mid-end bid side flow too. So again, not all ask side flows a buy, not all bid side flows a sell. Big misconception. Okay, let's see. Let's come back in here and take a peek. So again, watching that IV here, 24.65. Keep an eye on that spot. You're being filled with the ask. Let's jump in that IV. Jump in that spot price, good sign there. And seeing a little bit more come in here after about the same time at the bid, but again, that IV kind of staying up there and then drops a little bit. So a little tougher on that one, especially when that flow kind of comes in a minute or two after. But these did make a good move into close. 352, I mean, they closed at 390. Then nice little gap down on IBM. Looks like they opened at 657 and hit a high of 698 on the day. So that's 102.32%. So good move on those. And a couple of these I'm going to just kind of quickly go over. That Friday flow, I'm not a huge fan of recapping all the time just because it's coming in on a Friday and probably hasn't made a move yet. So Google this one. Looking at that flow here. So this is one that I scalped too. So, I mean, it reads as a buy, like when you look at it. But again, this is just some specific rules to go by. It's not always going to be 100% accurate. So actually now kind of looking at it, that IV does drop a little bit here. Not right at the same time, but when that flow comes in, that IV drops. But then the IV comes back up again. Typically something like this I would probably avoid, but I saw Snorlax also called these out too, so I was like, hey, okay, these look really good too. So, I mean, Snorlax, for those that don't know, very good flow reader. Highly recommend following him on X. So, I mean, that IV pops again and it's back up. So, I mean, it reads as a buy, and, I mean, kind of watching it a little bit later too. I mean, obviously hindsight's going to kick in and you have flow coming in at all seconds of the time sometimes. So that IV drops again. Probably sold these to open. And looks like they probably might have bottomed back here at 103. So we're going to say that is a 50% loss on those. And even the Google ones here actually will show everybody an example here. So why I thought they were also a buy too. So you come in here. Let's pop this to today. So we look at Google, so can see we had weekly 177.5 calls getting hit too. So to me that's saying, okay, well, somebody's targeting this call contract and this other call contract. So to me that would typically read as a buy, but not always. So NVO, again, a week left on these. So I have to see what happens here. 195. They're trading at 156. So down about 22% or so on those. And then we have the 718.45 ASTSs. So entry here was 350 or 345. Sorry, so 350, 345-ish. Little run there, and these were even at 350. And these were getting slammed all morning too. So 350. These are closing at about 397 here, so these are up about 13% as they go into close. But that is our flow recap video for last week. If you're interested in trying unusual whales, I have a discount code that is in the description. If you're interested in joining Stock Hub, again, all of our flow is posted in real time. I don't edit my posts or anything. Have a lot of flow in here, a lot of good chats. Feel free, it's $19 a month, you get everything. But otherwise, that is all I have. Have a great rest of your week, everyone.